Aren't you scared to go on the Appalachian Trail? Aren't there going to be bears? Do you need a gun? Aren't there crazy people? What if you find someone who comes and attacks you in the middle of the night? You're only in a tent. And although I think most of those comments have just come from my mother, I do have some fears for the trail. These are certainly fears, particularly parents seem to have, even though I'm middle-aged and my parents are well into their senior years, they still have. And yes, I do have fears. So I'm just going to go over 4 really of my top fears that I have, which don't include really those topics I've just mentioned. So these are my fears, and I think they're probably fairly common fears. So I'm going to go from the worst or the least fearful to the most fearful. And at the very end, I'll add just an extra little bonus fear of kind of a side note. So the first or least fearful, I suppose, is wildlife. Now, I'm not talking about bears so much. I mean, yes, bears are a concern and you do have to be respectful of them. But for the most part, they're really after your food. So as long as you're not smelling like your food or sleeping with your food, chances are you let the bear just do what it wants. You walk away. It's really that easy. I've had several bear encounters. I'm from the west coast of Canada. I'm in the mountains, bear country. I've had my experiences with bears. So far, I'm still standing, so we're okay with that. Moose, deer, all of those, not too concerned with. Just don't go up and pet them. Don't put peanut butter on your face. Do something silly like that. Not too concerned about that. The critters I am concerned with are the little guys, the little mice, getting into my backpack, chewing holes in things, trying to get at things that they're not supposed to have, and destroying my gear, and then I have to replace it. I'm more concerned about that. And snakes. I've been told there are some poisonous snakes along the top end of the route, but so I'm a little more unfamiliar with that. They camouflage well, they're hard to see, so that concerns me. The likelihood of that happening is really, really slim, but you know, it's in the back of my head. The other little critter I'm concerned about are ticks. Ticks are quite common, and that's why they mention spraying your gear and some of your clothes with permethrin, which I think we will be doing. We can't get that up here in Canada, so I'll have to do that in the States. And using a lot of DEET, doing tick checks. So those things, you know, keep an eye on for those. Remove any ticks with the tick little clips or tweezers. Don't just yank them out because you'll leave the head in, and that's where all the juicy bad stuff is. And then just keeping an eye open for any symptoms of Lyme disease, such as that bullseye mark that you would get, and a fever, all of those things. And if those things were to happen, to get to the doctor soon so you can get some medication to mitigate any of the awful symptoms of Lyme disease. So those are really the critters that I'm concerned about for wildlife. Although there is one other little critter that I'm concerned about. Just because we're leaving southbound in June in Maine, it is going to be mosquito and black fly season. Now, I've had plenty of experience with it, and they drive me nuts. I am sensitive to the bites in the beginning of the year, which I think is actually pretty common. So I'm just going to be a walking itchy mess. I know I'm going to have long sleeves and DEET and all of that. They're still going to find a way to eat me because apparently I'm tasty and delicious. That's just who I am. What can I do? So it's not so much, well, it is a fear in the sense that I don't want to be itchy, and it's going to be itchy for like weeks, and it's going to drive me mental. And I'll deal with it, but I don't want the bugs. And perhaps we should have planned later, but our time frame works for this. So we're going in June. I'm going to deal with the black flies and the mosquitoes, and that's just how it is. Still not a big fan. Moving on. The third biggest fear I have really is, and this may seem like an odd fear to have, but the Appalachian Trail is 2,200 miles roughly, and that's a lot of time to be in your head. I'm going to be looking at scenery, and I'll be traveling with my husband, obviously, but when we hike, we don't tend to sit and chit-chat a lot. We do spend a lot of time in our own heads, and yes, I'll be listening to music and podcasts, but I'm going to be spending a lot of time in my own headspace. I tend to do that a lot naturally, so the types of places where my head's going to go, like how is this trail going to change me? What kind of outlook? And it's something I'm looking forward to and not looking forward to, because I don't know which direction what kind of epiphanies I'm going to come across. If I come across any at all, I don't know. But the time to really think about what it is I want for my future. I am middle-aged. I'm going to be 50 on the trail. So a lot of these things, yes, they'll be firsts for me too, but because I've had a lot of that life experience behind me, I can put it into a different perspective for myself and which direction I want to take the second half of my life. So I think that's, it's a unique opportunity, but it kind of scares me because I don't know where that process is going to lead me. The second big fear that I have of navigation, getting lost. I am a bit directionally challenged. Even with plenty of white blazes, I'm sure I can find my way off on a different track. So I really need to practice my skills of navigation, not just on my GPS on my phone, but it's been a long time since I've practiced a map and a compass. And I know that seems a little old school and archaic, but it's always a good idea to have those skills. They're not hard to learn. You just have to practice it a few times, follow some instructions so you know what you're doing. I think these are important to go out. Now I have Jeff with me, but if there's a chance where Jeff decides to go ahead one day and we plan to meet up in hours versus traveling beside each other, and I get lost, I need to know what to do. Obviously, I think being lost is a huge fear of most people. So just knowing how to mitigate it will calm that fear, but it's still a fear in there, and it's something that I need to practice because I don't want to have to rely on Jeff to be my navigation. And right now, that's exactly what I'm doing because I haven't used those skills in a long time and I need to practice them. And my number one fear is injury. I think this is a pretty common one for most hikers, is to be concerned about being injured on trail. It's the one thing that for me would probably knock me off a trail. I am, as I've mentioned in previous videos, going to be 50. So I'm in that menopausal stage. So for you women out there, you're well aware that our hormones and bodies are changing. Things that didn't hurt before definitely hurt now. Estrogen, the hormone that's being depleted out of our body at this point, protects our joints. We don't have that as much. So my joints are going to hurt a lot more than they used to. So I need to make sure that I'm strengthening the muscles around my body right now. That's why I'm seeing a physiotherapist. I'm working with my doctor to make sure that I'm physically strong enough to be able to do this hike, because I don't want to get injured. Overuse is a big one, especially in the beginning. We're going to be starting southbound, so we're going to be going up Katahdin. That's a huge hill to hike on your first day. That's going to be hard on the joints. Once we hit the 100-mile wilderness, we're going to have to take it a little slower. I just know that we were not going to be making huge miles in the beginning because I don't want to wear out my knees. I do have some hiker knee issue, which I'm working on, as I mentioned. So these are things that, I do want to make sure. I am a bit clumsy. I'm a bit flexible. I roll on my ankles all the time. I've never been injured because of it. I bounce back pretty easily, but, I don't want one of those rolls to, lead into a fall and lead into a tumble and then require medical attention. If that is the case, then obviously we'll deal with that when it comes, but I don't want to have to do that. I'll be using trekking poles, like I said, strengthening my muscles, taking it slow so that I can have the best chance of success in that hike. As well as injury also includes things like just not listening to your body on trail. So if I'm getting too cold, if I'm getting dehydrated, or if I'm getting hungry, all of those things are very important. Certainly having a background in the medical field. I think I mentioned Jeff and I are both nurses. We spot those probably a little sooner. If something's going on in my body that I'm not paying attention to, likely Jeff will pick up on it and vice versa. But with all of that being said, I think the biggest overarching concern, and it's not really a fear per se, it's failure to not finish the trail. And I don't mean failure because you did get injured and you have to leave the trail, or you have family that requires your attention and you have to leave for that reason. Those are not failures, those are pauses. But failure to me is just deciding that I no longer want to do this. And I'm not saying that those that have quit the trail are failures. That's not what I'm saying. I'm saying that for me, every day is a challenge, and we make that choice whether we're going to take the next step and the next step and the next step. So I want to know that I can rise to that challenge and keep doing that. That's very important to me. That is the be-all as to why I'm doing this, is to challenge myself physically and mentally so far out of my comfort zone, and something I can be proud of in the end. So failure to me at this point would feel like a huge letdown, and I'm quite fearful of not being able to do that. I don't want to mentally decide, no, I'm done, and throw my hands up. So, I know the cliches of embrace the suck, never quit on a bad day. I think those things encapsulate all of that quite well. So I think how we deal with those moments, they reveal your character. Certainly when you have adversity and stress, how you choose to deal with things is going to change who you are. That's how we grow in life. And this is a big crossroad in my life, and I want to be able to direct it in the direction I'm expecting it to go. But, you have to let the universe do what it's going to do, and that's the end of that. I want to believe that I can and I'm capable of doing this. We'll see at the end, so hopefully you'll follow us along to see how that turns out. And as a bonus fear that I have, I've been hearing along the grapevine that a through hike is not a complete through hike until you poop your pants, essentially. Now, being a nurse, I have dealt with a lot of poop, but I don't want it in my own pants. So, no, it is a fear. I don't want to be the one to poop my pants. Is it going to happen? It probably will. Am I going to deal with it? Yep. Am I going to be embarrassed? Probably. Even though I tell plenty of my patients, it's okay. We've seen worse. We've dealt with worse. It happens. And if it does, it does. But I really don't want to poop my pants. Anyway, if you're enjoying this, please do like and subscribe. It helps the algorithm and it helps me get seen to other people who might enjoy this journey. And you can check out my other videos here, particularly the last one was how much money is this going to cost me? Hope you enjoy it. Thank you.